Good evening, everyone. On behalf of WWOC Media, and again, thank you, Luther. We're glad to be partnering with the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition, as well as the NWP, to bring you tonight's forum. And before we begin, we'd like to thank the candidates for making time. As we know, our elections and getting our community out to vote is important. So we know that these last few weeks are always the hardest, and the grind doesn't stop, and you guys have been going and will continue to go. So all the time that you can take to make sure that whatever part of our community needs to hear from you, we appreciate your time this evening and making way for us in this partnership, bringing you this event tonight. We are streaming live tonight on WWOC Radio, WWOC Media, Facebook Live, as well as the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition. So if you have friends, family members who couldn't join us and get some of our hospitality food beverages, tell them this now, but they can tap in virtually with us tonight as well, because we want to make sure that everybody who wanted to be here tonight and get this information that is so important to our community is able to do so. So once again, my name is Courtney Boston. I'm one of the co-founders of WWOC Media, which is Boston's very Black women-owned media company, home of WWOC Radio, WWOC Podcasting, and WWOC Visual. Tonight I will be moderating our second Suffolk District Synod Candidate Forum. So let's give it up for ourselves for coming out with our candidates tonight. As we all know, in less than 6 weeks, we will have the new state senator in Suffolk District in the city of Boston. There are 5 candidates all here with us tonight running for this seat. One of them will be our next state senator, who gets to wear that title, and who gets to wear that title will likely be determined by which candidate is able to secure, they say, the largest percentage of Black and Latino voters. That person will have direct influence and control over where funds are placing throughout the city, and that directly affects how our community looks, among a number of other things. And many of you today are part of our small business community. You're part of our BIPOC business-owned community, as well as, of course, very importantly, as our partner here, the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition, which circulates and brings together a lot of our restaurants and eateries. So, in conjunction with, of course, WWOC Media and NAACP, this forum is about the Senate, and as you know, the seat that candidates are going for was formerly held by Senator Cheney. So, if we could have a little snaps for our candidates that I introduced them, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Last, can we snap it up for Senator Diane Wilkerson, State Rep Liz Miranda, State Rep Anita Garland, Reverend Millard Culpepper, and so, for our first question, guys, we're going to keep this a little simple, and we'll have you guys just give a small introduction, as well as just talk a little bit about why you're running and why candidates, you think candidates important candidates to vote for you. I will give you one piece of logistics. Where is Brandon? He is here as our official NCP timekeeper. So we know that all my lovely folks up here can talk for a little bit too, and we are in limited time. So we're going to make sure that Brandon is going to give you. We have our WWOC Media, that is a shameless plug. We have a WWOC Media card. They're going to give 2 minutes in responses tonight to try to give people enough time. If we have some more time and it goes a little bit, okay. But Brandon is going to give a first wave for when there's 1 minute, and then the second wave will be you're out of time. So we got that? All right, so I will start here to my right. We'll start with Senator Wilkerson, and again, if you can just give a small introduction and tell our folks here tonight why you were running and why would you make the best candidate for the second.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Thank you. My name is Diane Wilkerson, resident of Roxbury. Lover of all things Black and brown. And so excited about tonight because I am singularly focused and committed on delivering dollars to this community and supporting our Black business, Black and Latino business, because the Black and Latino businesses hire Black and Latino people. And when Black and Latino people are working, they don't need affordable housing because they can pay for their own housing. And when Black and Latino people are working, right? I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on. But here's the bottom line. We have an opportunity now because Massachusetts, for the first time in the history of the Commonwealth, has money. We have lots of money. Figure out how to spend it. We spent lots of money in the last 2 years and we didn't get much of it at all. I know how to get it. I know where it is. I'm going to talk about the record to demonstrate that and respectfully hope that you would and ask that you would vote for me, September 6th, to be the next state senator, because I deliver. Thank you.
Hi, my name is James Grant, and I think that I should be the senator for this district. One is that I've worked very hard in this community. I've made sure that everyone within this community would have a job, would have a position. We're talking about small businesses. I've already had a small business. I've had my variety store. I've done silk screening. So I understand the importance and the challenges that we have before us as small businesses. And I will do everything in my will to make sure that these businesses is able to afford employees and make sure that they run it effectively for the community and make sure that everyone in the community can be serviced by the stores and the businesses within this community.
I'm Representative Nika Eliugardo. Thank you for having me today. Woke media, Black media is where it's at. We really appreciate you, and I've been looking forward to Black hospitality because Black and brown business and small business in general has been core to my approach to governance in my district. It doesn't matter how much money we have if we don't have a plan. It doesn't matter if we get $40 million coming to small business if we don't know which businesses those are going to. It doesn't matter if we have a Boston residence jobs policy if it's not enforced, and when you enforce it, it doesn't work. We can make these things work. Black business, Black people, Black education, Black jobs is exciting, not just because we build wealth, but our model for how to do community, how to do collective economics should be the model for the city. It's what is missing. I'm asking you to vote for me because this has been my work here in Boston for 31 years. Behind the scenes, building leaders, training leaders, making business models that work. And now I've been doing that for the last 4 years as a state rep. Was that my first one? As a state rep, I came in after 15 years of waiting to run for office from the point I decided, thinking this is gonna be a duty, man. But it has been enlivening, it has been life-giving, because there are more creative ways to bless our people from that perch right there in the State House than any of the jobs I've had across Boston, including running 2 statewide programs in housing and economic development, because you can break barriers there. And I'm there to break them for you. I'm the candidate that cares more about your leadership than even mine, but I will lead in the way that empowers that. Please vote Nika, 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 Nika. It means your victory on September 6th.
My name is Vineyard Culpepper, and I'm running for the state senate because I do believe that Black businesses are significant and important. But I also believe that if we don't start dealing with the gentrification issue, we won't have folks here to shop at these Black businesses. After 27 years at HUD, I decided to leave HUD in February because when you look at the housing situation, we're in a housing crisis. And I'm the housing candidate, and I'll be the housing senator because I think it's important that you come up with a plan. I have a plan that I called it the Gentrification Stabilization Plan because it goes right to the heart of gentrification. If we don't deal with gentrification, we're not going to be here to shop at the businesses that are here. And so what I've done is when I looked at where we are in the city, I said, take the housing that we have here, take public housing, renovate it, transfer ownership to the tenants, give folks in public housing some hope. I went down to Franklin Field today. I pass out literature. I told those folks that I was fighting to transfer ownership to them, you should have seen how excited they got. When you think about home ownership, it's stability, it's where businesses grow, it's where transportation centers are, it's where education is. I am the housing candidate, 27 years experience of putting folks in housing. Go down to Academy Home, ask them in New York Culture. They said the reason why we own Academy Home because of New York Culture. Go down to Campfield Gardens in the South End, ask them why they own it. They'll say they own it because of the demonstration disposition program that we did at HUD, New York Culture. Just walk down Cedar Street. By the way, I live on Cedar Street. I live in the house that my grandfather and grandmother lived in years ago. The first African American family to live on Cedar Street. Both New York Culture, September 6th. He's a candidate that will get the job done.
Good evening, everyone. My name is State Representative Liz Moran, and I've been serving in the Massachusetts House of Representatives for the last 3 years and 9 months. I'm a lifelong Roxbury resident, Boston Public School graduate, and the daughter of Black immigrants on Cape Verde. I believe that I'm the best person for this job to represent everyone. Since I've been in the State House, along with my community and advocacy organizations, I've delivered on legislation that matters to our community, specifically on ending mass incarceration and health equity and immigrant rights and environmental justice. But I've also delivered financially. I've ensured that there have been earmarks, and we've taken pieces of the budget, including $1 million, which was my last win in the House for technical assistance. A lot of our businesses are small businesses, but many of them are also micro businesses. And without the technical assistance, capital, and support, I know what it's like. I'm a former entrepreneur. Without those 3 things, you actually will not be able to succeed and grow in your community. I humbly ask for your vote on September 6th, on or before. You can vote by mail-in ballots and early voting and on September 6th. But I believe that it's time for new leadership, fresh eyes, people that work with people in community, but also in the building to get things done. Thank you.
One, two. Thank you, all candidates, for those introductions and for those clues to our people. We're going to start our first set of questions, as many of you spoke to and why we're here today in regard to our small business community, our BIPOC-owned and women-owned business community. So the first question in that space for you tonight, and we will we'll start, since we just ended with you, State Rep. Miranda, we will start with you and then go back down the line after, just to keep it fair here, okay? So the first question that we just have for the folks here with us tonight, can you talk to us a little bit about the small business community, specifically the minority-owned businesses, in your work thus far as candidates, as community leaders? What have you done specifically that has impacted, in your mind, minority or BIPOC businesses or women-owned and small businesses?
So I represent currently the Fifth Suffolk District. It has a robust food economy. So I have the New Market Business Association, I have Commonwealth Kitchen, I have 5 districts. And many of them are owned by not only African American people, but people from different islands. So whether it's Haiti or Cape Verde or Dominican Republic, many of them are immigrant business owners or elder business owners running a business with less than 5 employees. I've sat on the Small Business and Community Development Committee for the last 2 sessions, and 3 things that I can point to that I've done is I've worked with the New Market Business Association on their bid. They need to be a business improvement district. There are over 300 businesses at Mass and Cass. One of the problems is we have a public health crisis at Mass and Cass, and whether you're New Market Pizza or you're Winston Flowers or Suffolk Construction, it impacts you all. The second thing is I've worked with the 52 businesses with Commonwealth Kitchen. A few years ago, when the budget was going into FY22, I worked with Beckman, Amplify Latinx, and Commonwealth Kitchen to increase the line item from $5 million to $10 million so that more MBEs or WBEs and those that are not even registered as MBEs and WBEs could get the money. The third, in partnership with members of the Black and Latino Caucus, encourage the governor to change the Supplier Diversity Office and make it an agency. And there's a lot of work to still be done there, but to improve procurement you gotta put your money where your mouth is, you gotta get more staff, and the state, the Commonwealth has done a poor job of procurement, so that was something that I was working on in the tailor end of my third year.
Thank you. And we can go back down the line.
Thank you. You've heard me talk a lot about the demonstration disposition program, the program that Congress created. It was a congressional statute that gave the United States Housing and Urban Development the authority to transfer the housing to the tenants that they now own. But there was another component to that program that was significant. And the program was intentional to increase the capacity of the Black developers. And so what we did when we looked at the demonstration disposition program, originally it started out as a $5 million program. It ended up being $25 million. We did 18,000 units. Many of those became owned by the tenants. But the significant piece of it was that we made sure that there was a certain percentage of those $25 million went to the Black developers, because what that did, the goal of the program was not just to transfer the apartment multifamily dwelling to the tenants, it was also to increase the capacity of the Black developers. And we were successful. And I want to name the Black developers that were on the end of increasing their capacity. They're still in business. In fact, because of the demonstration disposition program and the intentional way we made sure they participated, their programs and their capacity grew. When they grew capacity, they hired more Black employees. When they hired more Black employees, more wealth into Black households. When more wealth goes into Black households, the Black community is the beneficiary of those wealth. It goes right to the businesses. So it was intentional. I believe that you have to be intentional as a state senator to make sure that the capacity of those businesses in our community grow through different pieces of legislation that I will introduce as state senator. Thank you.
My distinctive is that builds other leaders. And so this is what I've been doing my life, this is what I've been trained to do, what I've trained many others to do across the city, other places. The way that's worked out in the State House with small businesses has been phenomenal because of the innovative and the collaborative nature of business owners. So the first people I reached out to, apart from neighborhood associations, when I became a state rep, even before I was sworn in, was our Main Streets organizations. And so I have 4 in my district currently. We met weekly, so it was good that when COVID hit, we were doing, because when COVID hit, they were able to help me talk to not only my hospitality industry, but a separate for property owners. Because I'm big on housing and data protection, but I don't want to pull down landlords and property owners, I want to build them up, and that includes commercial property owners. Because many times you might get into your first business, but we want to see you having your second business, your third business, we want to see you able to buy a property, able to build real estate initiatives. And so we have to think much bigger, as you have found are already thinking. Now there's some very special thing happening in our district right now. And by our district, I mean those neighborhoods of Second Suffolk. When I began in January to travel around, I heard the same story all across the district. I'm Black, or maybe even more specific, I'm Jamaican. I'm bringing my culture and my people, either through the food, either through the fashion, into my people group, into my community. I'm gonna build a dream and a business here. I brought just like 9 women together to talk about that, but they all brought people, as 40 people gathered, and they've continued to meet. That type of coalition building, yes, there's money, I got a budget, I got earmarks, that's like baseline, y'all. What really makes that stuff effective is when we know where to put it, because you tell us so, and we put it in your hands, so that when one of you falls down, the rest of you can lift them up.
One of the things that I would like to do as senator is to develop more businesses in the community. Because one of the other things is that I don't think that we should go downtown and spend our money. I think our money should be invested in our community. I remember something like the Black Wall Street where the dollar bill was being turned over 10 times. And we need to basically get back to that. And the services, also the businesses, also need to respect the people in the community as well, that we can develop and we can strive as a community and as a business, and basically develop confidence in going to get the merchandise that we need to get from the businesses.
Thank you, and to close us out with this question, Senator Wilkerson.
So the good thing about talking about what you've done for the Black businesses or Black and Latino businesses is that the Black and Latino business owners who are sitting in this room know who is there. We can tell the stories, and the stories sound wonderful. So let me just talk about the last 3 years, because this to me was the most critical. Last 3 years was the most critical. So I just talk about during COVID. During COVID, Massachusetts received over $142 billion of COVID-related resources to purchase material, the PPE, keep our hospitals, the nursing homes open, target vulnerable communities, $142 billion. And I bet not one of you know a business or have a business that got a dime of that money. That's because the folks that were sitting in that thing called State House didn't do it. But while that was happening, the federal government predicted that at least 80% of businesses were going to go, 60% of businesses would go under. We know they say 60 for us. For 60, that means 80 and 90. So we went to work, actually working with the Black Boston Hospitality Coalition to make sure that our restaurants could stay in business and provide business to them to feed people who are isolated. Our seniors, we work with the city of Boston, we work with Commonwealth Kitchen, who received $750,000. We hired 130 of our residents from this community to walk around, provide masks. 6 different businesses were employed at the Reggie Lewis during the time that we were doing the mass vaccine site. They did security, they did the PPE, they did the cleaning, every single one of them, Black and Latino businesses. That's the only thing that matters. Raising $150,000 for the Black Boston Hospitality Coalition so that they could buy emergency equipment for some of our restaurants where the furnaces went down, and finally helping them manage the licensing process, which still became due during COVID, and negotiated with the city so that they did not lose. The 16 liquor licenses that we have that they own out of 1,500 in the city. To protect them, we had to make sure they didn't get docked and not have to pay. That's just a small piece of what I actually did and know about. We can talk about more about what happened in that process. Thank you. Piggyback a little bit on a couple of things that you guys have talked about. Throwing this next question, and we can start with you, Reverend Culpepper. When we talk about the state of Black businesses, brown businesses, minority-owned businesses, how important are our businesses to our local Massachusetts economy? And in that light, do you think that the state of how they are is living up to that according to the potential of the importance and the impact that our minority and women-owned businesses can have on our economy?
Thank you for that question. And I think our businesses, our communities are more than significant. They are the heartbeat of our community. And I know that because as a 14-year-old, I worked in Grove Hall. My grandfather had a shoe store in Grove Hall. I know all about Capezios because I sold Capezios in the shoe store in Grove Hall. What happens with businesses is that when you look at the state budget, when you look at $4.8 billion, when you look at $11 billion going to Black businesses, when you look at 12 businesses going to the Hispanic businesses, then our state leadership has failed us. I believe that as state senator, that we need to file legislation that will guarantee a certain amount of that $4.8 billion from 2020 to our Black businesses. Because unless we have someone on Beacon Hill that's going to fight to guarantee that our Black businesses are grown, the way we were able to do that to the federal government is because there was no state money that went into the disposition program, no city money that went into it. It was all federal money. And I believe that when federal money went into those businesses, the capacity grew, hiring Black workers. When you hire Black businesses, when Black businesses' capacity grow, then the Black employees grow. We know that Black businesses hire Black people. Like I said before, and when Black people are hired, Black businesses, Black wealth goes into that household. When Black wealth goes into that household, Black wealth goes into the community. It's significant, and I think our state leadership has failed us. That's why I'm running for state senate, to go to Beacon Hill and to make some good trouble, to make sure that our folks get what we deserve.
Thank you.
Yes, one of the reasons I am running for state senate is because I've been delivering from my little district. I represent all of Mission Hill, and then a part of Jamaica Plain, and a part of Rosendale on the Boston side. And when I brought in $1 million out of that first round of COVID money that we got, we had $500,000 for PPE and for COVID testing, because remember back then, if you went to work and you didn't have symptoms, you couldn't get tested. And we got the other $500,000 for our Main Streets businesses, and they had to hire people that lived in public and affordable housing. And so it was a very holistic approach that came, because I have been meeting with all those parties, including the youth who have been lugging folks outside of my house, who I got their pictures and made sure they came through the youth workers, so that they could be part of that process and help me get that money. And so we made arguments for trauma-informed workforce development in the same sentence. And that's the first one. And that's why we were able to create some unintended positive consequences for once. And so one of my Main Streets directors, Warren, told me, because we have been having some problems, and I've seen it across the Senate district, we can't get people to come in at night because there's too much loitering. Well, the loitering decreased because some of the loiterers had jobs in those businesses, and they were now policing the place. And we've seen that across my district. I chose the BHA to be the deliverer of those funds so that I could sneak and provide for other districts. So Fields Corner got some of that money, for example, and places outside of my district. I want to sneak for y'all. I want to be there for y'all on the first. And so if you give me the Senate district, we will take the same models. Yes, please do ask every one of my small businesses right there in Hyde Square and Jackson Square. They will tell you. That's why they were taking me all around yesterday. I'm touring those businesses 3-4 times a year. I just did another tour recently, not because I'm running, but because I always do. I want to do that where you are. I've met with all your Main Streets directors. They're excited about this vision. Let's get some work done.
Well, I think when we start to talk about the state and the businesses in the community, I would be the type of senator that would make the state responsible for the finances of some of the businesses in this community, because I think if we have enough money to push the businesses and make them successful, then we can start employing people. And I think that would be a good perspective on our end as far as fighting for money to come back into the state, to come back to the community to rebuild some of the businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Senator Wilkerson.
Can you read that question again? Question that you asked.
Yeah, sure, no problem. It's a two-part question. It's really, the core of the question is, how important or why are small businesses, minority-owned businesses important to our Massachusetts economy? And the current state of our businesses, do you think are they living up to that potential or level of importance that obviously that many of you are speaking to exists?
Thank you. So I'm going to start to mention something that I think we glossed over. And I want you to stay on this, and I'm hoping that people can do some fact checking after the evening, because this evening everybody's going to tell you what they did, make you think it's wonderful, and everybody knows it's not wonderful. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts spent $4.8 billion in goods and services. That is with a B, like 9 zeros. And Black businesses got $11 million of that. Latino businesses got $12 million, 0.002. Under the Baker administration, with a legislature, 2 of which are sitting right on this panel tonight, sitting there, and I have yet to hear the protest, the fight, the argument, the press conference, this letter, the something. Tell me you said something to him, because I'm still waiting to hear it.
I got you.
Yeah, Well, they've been asked several times, so I'm waiting for an answer. That's the bottom line. We didn't get any. We didn't get any. That's just the bottom line. We can make it sound all nice. Make it sound like Mission Hill is in Mansfield. Mission Hill is right next door. It's part of Roxbury. There's Black people there too. And
You don't need to talk about this. You don't need to come back.
Don't interrupt. Don't interrupt. We let the senator finish and then, State Reps, I'll give you a chance.
here's the bottom line. We've been starved for leadership on Black and Latino business opportunity, not for a lack of money. It's not about a process or quotas. We already have it. It's about enforcement. It's not voluntary. We have to fight to make them do it. And when they don't do it, we have to scream loud, pound the table to deliver. There's no, and you need somebody who's willing to do that. I love it. I'm not scared of them. I'm not afraid to talk about Black people, Latino people out loud. We need to go get our money, and I'm the person to do it because the folks who've been trying ain't got it. Thank you.
Okay, let's give the opportunity of our state reps to respond. So in the rebuttal, before we move into our last two questions, and we're going to open it up for community questions as well. So I do want to make sure we're maximizing time, but I would like to give State Rep Miranda and Nika Alaguardo the opportunity to respond. And let's do about let's make it 45 seconds to give you guys time to respond to that conversation.
Can I answer the question and then we can feel free? So I'll answer that in a minute because we did not fail. We led with a lot of courage through a global health pandemic, a housing and economic crisis, through a racial awakening, and we delivered. I can't speak for every member of the Black and Latino caucus, but I can speak for Representative Alaguardo and myself that we in our districts have delivered time and time again. We're responsive, we're people that are accessible, and I can name people. I see the Pearl here, I see Soleil, Comfort Kitchen was in the building. I could talk about all those businesses that I've stood on a little bit to call Mass Capital or to call Mass CDC to help. The answer is no, but we inherited this. We've never done a good job in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to uplift and sustain Black businesses. And there's actually, in the last 10 to 20 years, been a decline. The senator, when she was at the State House along with people like Charlotte Woolridge, Marie St. Fleur, they delivered a lot for businesses. And part of the problem is the state's procurement system is antiquated and has many barriers to access. And that's what I would like to talk about. So we have this combine system that many Black and brown businesses, particularly micro businesses, particularly immigrant businesses, just can't get through to even to be able to bid, to be able to do business with the Commonwealth. So that's an important step that needs to be done.
Thank you. We can do that now. We'll put same time on the clock, and then we'll move to our next question.
Reverend Miranda is right. We inherited some problems and we did deliver. We were up in the governor's offices, not just writing letters, but physically in his face. It is about a fight. It is about courage. But it takes the courage to know when you gotta actually do something besides just fight. It takes the courage to know that you wanna build something so when you walk away, it doesn't fall apart. You wanna build something with your people, and that's what we've been working on. And so we have data, yes, we need data to really understand the problem so we can bring it back to the people that tell us this isn't really happening. That data just doesn't just come from collection, it also comes from you and from the stories that we take from you. And so you can go check anybody in my district and they will tell you exactly what we delivered and still delivering. Not only because of the money I've continued to bring, but other folks have come in along too, whether it be Children's Hospital, whether it be the Boston Housing Authority, they're all chipping in because when something's working, everybody wants to do it. I wanted to work for Roxbury. I wanted to work for Fields Corner. I wanted to work for the whole district. That's why I need you to elect me as senator, because leaders that build leaders make it work for you.
We have one doing, and then we're going to open it up, in the interest of time, to the community that's here as well. We have a number of questions that were sent in to the Boston Hospitality Coalition, and as well as I know we probably have live questions here in the audience. But our last question that I have for you, we just spoke and had some good debate around COVID-19 money support for Black and brown businesses. And my last question to you, we can start with you, Mr. Grant, because I don't believe we started with you as of yet. So you can start us off and answer the question for me, candidates. Before COVID-19, before the pandemic, Boston Black and brown businesses were already, as much as you guys are speaking to, struggling. The pandemic worsened this situation, and not all businesses were able to receive the ARPA money. If you were elected, what would be your plan to ensure that Black and brown businesses in your district can begin or continue to thrive in a stronger way and stay open and flourish?
Well, one of the things that I would do is make sure that I would have to do this on the city and state level, and based on the COVID situation that you mentioned, and make sure that we can sit down and where a lot of these small businesses lost money, that we would be able to finance where they have lost money. Not only in the sense of losing money for the business owners, but the employees as well. And I think that if we sit down and we can come together, we would be able to make everybody happy that's been affected by the COVID disaster that we had.
Thank you, and thank you for that response. And why don't we go to Senator Wilkerson, and then we'll go to State Rep Alvarado, and then Culpepper, and then we'll close with Rep Miranda. Okay.
So one of the things that you all need to know, if you don't already, is that in March of 2020, there was a declaration of emergency declared both on the national level by the president, and the state level by the governor, and then the city level by the mayor. The legal impact of that meant that from that moment on, there was no bidding. So when you talk about Black businesses having trouble bidding, in a declaration of emergency, they did no bids. They picked up the phone and called their friends and gave them those contracts. But that's not the reason Black folks didn't get it. They didn't have trouble filling out an application or a bid. There was no bidding. The city of Boston gave them out directly. The state of Massachusetts gave them out directly. So that COVID money that was spent, the $142 billion, and even the goods and services, the 4.8, was all done through that process. Number one. Number two, what are you going to do? I urge you to go on the website for the Wilkerson Percentage Campaign, and you will read my economic plan. It is bold, it is transformational, and it is a game plan and a map to how we go get our money and what it's due. And list everyone and where the source of the money will come from. We have a Black homeownership fund for the Black homeowners who have purchased their properties in Roxbury, Dorchester, and Mattapan to replace what was stolen from us by the federal, city, and state government in the 1970s. There is a Black and Latino business fund to support what they lost and denied to them. There's a Eradicate the Gap, Racial Achievement Gap fund for our children who were left out of school, many of them not able to connect on internet for 2.5 years. And there is a health equities fund. And then the one that I'm most proud of is the fund that will provide a $15,000 cash payment to every Black resident in the city of Boston as of March of 2020 to make up for what was stolen. And the plan is called contemporary reparations, to make up for what was stolen. And as I said, every single section is provided. We've already started the conversations with the hospitals around the healthcare equity to get that money. So I'm just reading.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you.
So we need to restructure financing so it looks more like how Black people do business. And there are a lot of ways to do that, and it's been experimented with by certain banks, Boston Private Banking Trust, who's actually made a whole book of business out of it, and it's been very profitable. Both of the statewide programs I ran, I worked with community banks and with Mass Bankers Association. And one of the things that I learned in that process over 20 years of those two programs, I wasn't working for them for 20 years, but there's 20 years in between those two jobs. The same thing that has happened across that whole couple of decades. When finance agencies redo the products to suit the people that need them, you're able to be successful. So this is why I filed a public bank bill, and I'm also doing the work working with revenue. You also have to think about working with the revenue committee and the bonding committee to see if we can get that done next session. We also have to think about bonding. So I spent a lot of time writing about capital investment plans. We gotta get nerdy and in the details because people are spending that money. It's not plain money, but we're not getting it. But we're not getting it, and we can't. I was mentored by the outgoing bonding director and the incoming bonding director of our committee there in the House. And so I know how to use those capital investment plans to draw down money for our small businesses, and I have some plans for that. But we also have some practical on-the-ground things. The whole structure around getting a liquor license is ridiculous, and it doesn't look anything like it looks in other states that are more successful. We need to reform that, take the politics out of it, and make sure that it's outcomes driven so that it's easy for you to get what you need to be successful. The last thing I'll say is a lot of times I have to call up the city and talk to the mayor directly. Former 2 mayors that we just recently had, as well as the current mayor. We need to put something in place so that I don't have to personally call every time something needs to be expedited for one of our small businesses. And if we do those 4 things, that's going to empower you along with the other things I've talked about with regards to coalition building and power building and organizing. And we will see change that is slow at first, but goes very far and lasts even when I step in.
Thank you for that question. One of the things that we saw when we look back over how things happened pre-COVID, during COVID, and even now, is the federal government through the Small Business Administration had different opportunities for businesses to apply for millions of dollars. The state had the same opportunity. One of the problems is the technical capacity to know how to apply and get those monies. If you look at how those white businesses, they have the technical capacity, they have the office already set up, they apply for that money, they got the money. By the time many of our businesses figured it out, the money had already been given out. As state senator, I will set up Black and Brown Technical Capacity Assistance Office because these businesses need to know the complications, especially when it comes to something like the federal acquisition regulation. That's what they call the FAR. So as state senator, I'm going to Beacon Hill. I'll set up the Technical Assistance Office for Black and Brown businesses. I feel like Martin Luther King. I feel like it's time for us to go to Beacon Hill and get our check. We have not been getting our due share. It's time for us to go to Beacon Hill. And as state senator, many of our co-members will go to Beacon Hill. I'll make some good trouble, and I'll make sure that we go to Beacon Hill and get our check. It's time for us to get our checks. It's time for us to go to Beacon Hill, cause some good trouble, and get our checks.
You can go into broadcasting, I'm sure. Can you repeat that question? I know it's probably. I'm sitting here. Can you repeat? I'm sorry. The good trouble, Martin Luther King thing is not me.
That's the Reverend. So a repeat of the question, State Reverend. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, Boston Black and Brown businesses were already struggling. The pandemic worsened the situation, and not all businesses were able to receive the ARPA money as we've been speaking about. If you were elected, what would be your plan to ensure that Black and Brown businesses in your district begin to thrive and stay open and flourish?
That's a really interesting and good question. It's timely. It's also critically important for anyone that's going to be the second Suffolk senator. We can't end the racial wealth gap without talking about homeownership, but also about businesses in our communities. Today I was at Mr. Allen's formal wear, 54 years in our community, and Mayor Wu just launched. Shout out to Mr. Allen. My tape got his prompts there, but the point that I'm talking about Mr. Allen is that there's usually funds to start your business, but there are very few funds to continue and grow and scale your business. And the legacy program that was just announced today is something that I believe should be taken statewide. The idea that you can apply for a grant, not alone, this is very important, shouldn't have to pay it back. We are a wealthy commonwealth. The idea that it can go statewide is very important. The second thing, I saw Colleen Fonseca here, who runs the Boston Builders of Color Coalition that has a lot of members in Boston and nationally, but not statewide. You always need somebody to speak with you and for you and to help you. So advocacy organizations like the Boston Builders of Color are incredibly important. She's done a phenomenal job. Recently, Mayor Wu also announced a partnership with them that they're gonna force developers who are building on public land to disclose the diversity of their teams. That's incredibly important. Who you're paying, who you're doing business with, and who's actually your teams doing this work is incredibly important. And the last, a lot of people, if you haven't heard about the Massport model, a lot of folks talk about this sort of a way to bring diversity, but we need a Commonwealth model. We need something newer. We need something refreshed. We need to be bolder because we can't just expect to do 10% of your business with said community because we make up 20 to 25% of the state's population. In Boston, we make over 50%. Until we get to doing over 50% of our business with Black and Brown communities, that means we haven't reached the limit of doing that work yet.
So at this time, in the consideration of time, and I know many of us in the room tonight came out, you have questions on your own, you might have not made it to our mix and mingle with the candidates a little earlier, so we want to be able to give a few minutes in our evening tonight to hear from the community and have our candidates answer questions directly. So if we have anyone who has questions, I see a few hands popping up, I'll invite you here to the mic with myself. So I can keep Rep. Miranda with her good mic, with the best mic, the woke mic. And we can ask a couple of questions. So Mr. Singleton, would you like to come up? And then we'll go here in the back as well. If you guys would have a question, if you want to come stand here, and then we'll do it like that to keep it moving.
Good evening. Good evening. You're all such fine candidates. I'm so happy to see everyone here. I'm going to ask each one of you, have you thought about after the election? After the election, one of you will win. Can you work and prove that you can work together? Because this is what we need more than anything else. All of your ideas need to be working. So I would not like to see contention as much as cooperation and collaboration. And I want to have you thought about how you will work with the winner of this campaign.
Excellent question.
And candidates, just so we can make sure that we get to everybody, we're going to keep this round just to 1 minute, the community questions, just so we can get through a number of people. All right? So,
Absolutely, everyone on this panel has contributed a great deal to our city and different corners of our city, and we're already in partnership together. I know that many of the policies that I thought about when I went to the State House was developed over watching our first Black senator to the left of me and just seeing her legacy of brilliance and accomplishing so much in her 15 years that I knew when I get to the State House, I had to work and get things done. I haven't had the chance to work with Mr. Culpepper or Mr. Grant, but I think that we can move mountains together and better together, so I say yes.
thank you, State Rep. Representative Culpepper.
Thank you. I think one of the things that we found among us as we campaign, and we see each other at a lot of different events, it's amazing because we are family. Liz, when I see her, she gives me a big hug. She calls me Culpepper. Nika, when I see her, she gives me a big hug. She calls me Red. Diane looks at me, she's like my sister. She calls me John. And so, and James calls me his brother. So we are family, and we will work together. The amazing thing about this election is that we will continue to work together, we will fight together, and we'll all go to Beacon Hill to make good trouble because it's time that we get our check.
Yes, we will work together. I would just like to start out by, if we could give a round of applause to Senator Wilkerson for her legacy. Right. We have all that time. We stand on the shoulders of giants. We would like to have that opportunity to see. Whatever happens in this race, I will do what I have always done. I have worked indirectly with all of them in one way or another. Senator and I worked closely on the evaluation processes for endorsing our mayor. Liz and I have worked closely together, and I knew her 25 years ago when she was a little receptionist, or what were you doing at the VMA? And I was training the people that were running the youth programs there. And I worked in ministry for many years in Manual Gospel Center. We crossed different paths. And so I'm a former basketball player, an athlete. When you're on the court, you get a check, you throw up some fouls, but when you come off the game, you respect the champions, and I'm the champions right here.
Once again, my name is James Grant, and I am glad to even be among these four candidates. I think when I become your Senate, I will definitely make sure that I can go to them for information. Diane Wilkerson, she know I've made several t-shirts for her campaign. I have my silk screen business, so it's not too much far that we go. Yes, we will discuss issues, we will agree, but we will disagree. But as far as that is as far as it goes. So I think that we have a harmony amongst ourselves, and we will continue to have that love for each other. I don't think it's going to change.
So my answer is easy yes too, and I think, I don't want anybody to confuse my passion and love for this community for consternation and for conflict. I worked with the elected officials at the very beginning when we were finally able to get the COVID-19 vaccine center at the Reggie Lewis. In fact, I recall that Rep. Elgardo said it was the first time all the elected officials have been in one room in a long time. And a lot of the people are not necessarily my favorite people, but when it's time to get the job done, everybody is a colleague. That is always the way I've done my business and will continue to do that. That when it's about this community, you gotta put stuff aside and get in the room and get around the table and get the job done. Nothing changes for me.
Thank you all for your attention.
Peace and blessings, family, because you are my family. My question is, currently representing the second Suffolk district, we're looking at over 40,000 residents easily. Thank you very much. I wanted to be corrected on that. And how do you get the information out to those residents? Because it appears that there is a lack of communication. Would you be open up for town hall meetings to educate our people to give them the information? Thank you.
I'll just start for the interest of time. Our communities get our information differently. One of the things as a former radio person, and I know you had a radio station, shout out to WWOC, it's a travesty that we don't have WILD or Hot 97 here, because our communities, a lot of them rely on public radio or public television or social media, like for example, Facebook gets a lot of hits in the elder demographic to get their information. So yes to town halls, but I do believe that there's other methods that we need to be using to ensure those town halls are crowded, right? And so the idea is that not only using what we have in the built media marketplace, but I actually think we need to help create and rebound from the loss of all the radio stations that we've lost, to have places where we can talk about the fabric of the Black community and families can get together. So thank you.
Does everybody, if anyone wants to add on, and let's just keep, for interest of time, I know we have two more questions, and I have to put down on 30 seconds. If anybody feels moved to answer that.
Charles, I believe that town halls are something that we traditionally had. During COVID, if you remember, no one really had town halls because we weren't gathering. But we've had many town halls at the different churches. It's time to go back to town halls, whether it's be at a church, whether it's at a community center. But I think that is a way that we've always got information out. And look, if you want to do a town hall, Pleasant Hill is 155 Humboldt Avenue. I'll sponsor the first town hall. I think it's a great way for us to come together and share information and begin to strategize about ways to move our community forward.
Do good trouble.
I have already started working on this plan, so yes, I have met with all the new neighborhood associations, because that's been a core for me, not just going to the meetings, but also the directors of them. And I've talked about this idea, how would you feel about not just coming together across all the neighborhood associations, but coming together to build power? What would that look like? And so I've been strategizing ideas with each one, just like I've been doing with the main streets. So the answer is yes, because we have a highly relational district, Second Suffolk, even more relational than the one I currently represent. And so we gotta be in person together and use the social infrastructure we already have.
Thank you.
I think one of the things that I would do is try to use the best as much as possible, because I think a lot of people are suggesting to that. I would probably have a website with my name on it and send it, where I can give people the information. The first thing I would do is try to employ somebody in this within my particular area and be able to download that list and be able to send stuff out by email. One of the most important things that I think would also be helpful is if we start having like type festivals and stuff like that more for the families, and try to pull the families together to send a message to the families and the gaps that we have for each other as a community.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Senator?
Just quickly, I think that every public person, elected official that you ask about this would tell you that getting information to constituents in a timely fashion is the most challenging of all, and it was from the beginning to the end, and it will continue to be. And it's ironic because we have more information mediums than we ever had before. And I think that we have to get smarter in how we use them. And I think Miranda said no one issue, place, way, format works for one. Seniors, for the most part, are not on email or Facebook. So you have to do a little bit of everything. And I think that we have the tools to do it. I'm actually working with some young people right now about that very thing. So it is a multifaceted approach to get information to people in a timely fashion. Absolutely. We're all committed to do it.
Thank you, Senator. We're going to take another question for you, right?
My question to all of you is that we talk about transferring home ownership to the Black community. To transfer the home ownership, how are we going to keep it? Some people have jobs, they don't make a lot of money. So that's a question. And another question is, the businesses in our community, they price gouge us. We can't afford to shop in our community. We have to go outside to get good pricing. So I'd just like to know, do you guys have a plan to control that, or do something about it?
I'll be very quick. One is the down payment assistance programs that we currently have, including the one mortgage that we have at the state level, just up their cap. Because a lot of people fell in between the two barometers of what you could get the loan, to your mortgage, And so it went from $88,000 per year as a family to $98,000 a year. That helped a lot of other families. So down payment assistance and foreclosure diversion programs are incredibly important. Many people who are in retirement did not save enough for retirement, and many of them are in their homes right now trying to figure out if they still have a first mortgage or a second mortgage, or they had an adjustable mortgage that the rates have gone up high. How can they actually afford? So Nuestra Comunidad had a program. I don't know which other programs are here now, but increasing both of those things would be a priority. The price gouging, when COVID-19 was happening, we're already paying high prices. The bodega is 3-4 times more than a regular store. But I worked with the AG's office to go after people that were price gouging to a level, like for example, they were selling sanitizer that was 8 ounces for $15, to work with the AG's office and the Office of Small Business to go after anybody. So I would continue to do that to ensure that, it's in the free marketplace, but there's a certain standard. You shouldn't be paying triple or quadruple what some basic goods cost.
Thank you, State Rep. Go on now.
Thank you for that question, because I think it's a significant question, especially when you think about gentrification and you think about housing. One of the things that many folks don't realize is that Much of the multifamily housing that has been developed in the city of Boston and across the country came about as a result of Section 8. Developers would go to HUD, get a commitment for 250 Section 8 certificates, go to a mortgage company or go to a bank. The bank will give them a construction loan. They'll build the development with that Section 8 money that they haven't even gotten yet, just a commitment. Once the development is completed, they put, if you have 250 Section 8 tenants in the development, that pays for that development. 25-year Section 8 certificates that folks really don't think about. Developers put none of their money into it, went to the federal government, got the commitment, made the development. So if you look at the multifamily developments around the city, many of them are Section 8 subsidized that came from the federal government that not one penny of the city or the state money went into. And I think one of the things that we've been really working on is trying to help developers do the same thing, minority developers, because those 25-year Section 8 certificates make a big difference. Real quick, Brandon, Section 8 certificates, folks are buying homes with Section 8 certificates in New Hampshire. I think we can do the same thing with a Section 8 home. No, but as state senator, I will set up a program and not only give them down payment money. The problem is that
Thank you. You can go, yeah, state rep.
So, when I was in my 20s, I found myself running a statewide program of foreclosure prevention, the first of its kind, with the National Consumer Law Center. And I was younger than most of the people I was supervising in Roxbury and across the state. And we had the honor of drafting the foreclosure prevention, part of the curriculum that Chapter told me housing programs they still use today, but it's not enforced properly. And that's because we're not organized on the ground. We also, when it comes to price gouging, of course, prosecute fraud. I'm a lawyer, I'm all about that. But at the same time, we have models like the Dorchester Food Cooperative. We have Black cooperative building agencies statewide that have reached out to me to say, you know, Rep. Gardo, we know you're all about this model of cooperative economics. How can we spread it outside the food industry? There's a lot we can do to keep our prices down when we're organized. And that's why I'm banging the table on the issue of coalition building and power building. We need to know what that looks like. You know, we don't have to like nobody, but we do have to brace together.
Thank you.
If I did understand the question right, I think one of the things that we would have to do is revisit something called statutory statutory redemption, which is basically allowing people to give them more time in their house or in their apartment. The other thing is that to bring prices down on the stores, I know we were trying to get Walmart here, which would basically answer your question, where it would be good for them to come in because their prices are cheaper. But we just got through talking about Black businesses, so it would be very competitive for the Black businesses. But I think one of the things that we should do is make sure that we would have to come together as a community and figure out how we discuss both having those large corporations in our community that can facilitate and make the prices easy for us versus the stores already set within the community, if I understand the question right.
Not Walmart. All small businesses, they don't want to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. On you, Senator.
I would say to the sister's question, if we just look at the question that you raised about housing as a housing issue, we miss the whole point. You know, residents of Roxbury make an average under $50,000 a year. So even the AMI doesn't help them. They're nowhere near it. The point is, my economic Black and Latino Boston Reset Plan is about rebuilding people through education, through business, through cash, direct cash grant, through health inequities and dealing with the social determinants that impact our income, our housing, all at once. You can't do them one at a time. doesn't really matter what you build if half of the population is in Roxbury. Dorchester's not much better. It's actually even a little higher of the population in Dorchester. The residents of Dorchester make actually $135,000 a year. So you can't have a real conversation about housing without dealing with that. So this is about a major boost to Black and Latino women-owned businesses so that they can hire our people and pay them wages that would allow them to even be in the process to compete and pay rent. So the basis of it, again, I urge you to look at the contemporations plan and see.
Thank you, Senator. We're gonna make room for one last question for our community, from someone that we know. And we will then turn it over for our closing remarks. Once again from Luther, so we can try to get to these questions, but because of the interest of time, we're going to push it through, and then maybe in some of our last 15 minutes after we close, you guys can have conversations with
All
some
due
of our
respect,
neighbors.
I didn't have conversations, that's why I was part of one of the first people, but I couldn't go there because I was harassment on my stage thing, so I've been sitting back here, so I let everybody else go.
Hey, candidates, can y'all
I'm going to ask Cheryl to ask the next question, and then we'll have a conversation.
Bring her up some.
I would like to bring up 2 points. First, my business had the opportunity to work with 2 queens on the end. Thank you both, because when you were in position, you made sure that this Black business made it. So thank you for that. Haven't had the opportunity to work with the middle, but I appreciate that. My question is a follow-up to the initial question. We all know that at the end of the game, there's an outcome. Here's my question. If we're a week or 2 out before the election, would you all consider going behind closed doors and pushing the strongest candidate forward based on data that we received? Because we did see the outcome of what happened when Charlotte Bolar Ritchie ran. So just curious to know, we know after the game is over, we can say what everybody should have did, could have did, would have did. But is there space for you all to think about who is it that has the highest percentage chance, opportunity to actually hold the seat? Would you all go behind closed doors and maybe someone just say, you know what? I'm pushing all my folks in your direction, whoever's direction it is. Because we all know that there's an opportunity for everybody involved. But after the game is over, the game's over.
That's an interesting question. I think in our race, it's really unique. There hasn't been formal polling, but from what I can gather, all of us have strong bases of people in support. And actually at this point, 2 weeks out, 20 days out, it seems like there's everyone has a sizable amount of support. Of course, as a public servant, if I was called into a space to rethink about my approach or my desire to be the second Suffolk senator, I would go in any room and have any discussion. But I feel that I've ran a strong race for the last 9 months. I've raised $280,000. I've been knocking on doors, and so I feel confident that I should be running for this seat. But I do think it's important. I think we did this in the beginning, and we made other decisions together. But the point is that we should be talking as Black and brown communities ahead of races. I don't know if there's enough time in 20 days, Cheryl, to change minds. But I think it would have been important to have that conversation a little earlier. But I do feel that all of us have a strong base of support. Everywhere I go, they're there, their teams are there, and they're working hard. So I answered your question.
Cheryl, thank you for the question. And it's interesting that you raised that tonight, because maybe 2 months ago, James and I were texting about doing exactly that, trying to get everyone together in the room to try and figure out who should run. I mean, I text him, he texts me. We set up a time to meet. For some reason, we never got a chance to meet, but we had talked about it. I've talked with some of the elders in the community who said the same thing. one of them I talked to, I said, well, do you think I should be one of the ones that dropped out? And he said, no, I think you're one of the ones who should stay in. And so I think we all have qualified candidates. I think we all have worked hard. I think we all have put people in. When you look at our funders and those that have donated, I think folks expect us to carry this through. I would love to get in a room together with everyone. We can still do it. We might not come out with who should run, but at least we got in the room together because we're all family. And whoever wins, I'm sure we'll all support that person like family.
Thank you, Reverend Culpepper. State Representative Marvel.
Yeah, if I saw or was presented with evidence that one of these black queens didn't have a chance to win, I would get behind one of them so that we can make sure that that happens. I haven't seen that evidence, but we have enough data presented to us in that regard. And like Reverend said, I've seen evidence to the contrary that a lot of people up here are very strong. I have 11 precincts in the district. A couple other people up here represent many precincts in the district. We do have strong bases. We've all expanded our bases. And so I think that would be a difficult measure. It would be difficult to measure that. So it's a very theoretical question under the circumstances, but that would be my position.
I really appreciate the question. The problem when it comes to me is that I've been disappointed in the whole process because I wasn't at a lot of the engagements and I wasn't called to be at the engagements. So that does not put me in a good position. It puts me more in a trailing position at this particular time. But I think if I get more publicity, it would probably expedite my process of winning. I would like to sit down and speak to everyone in the process of sitting down as a group, because that means we all don't have to get too busy when we can't meet. But just sit down and discuss and brainstorm some of the issues that we would have to do. The thing is, based on your question, and based on the earlier question about everyone's relationship here, we might be able to form a whole pack to impact this community a whole lot better than if we go separate. But it would have to be a group effort, and we all would have to be making to that sacrifice, where personalities does not get in the way or cloud our judgment towards coming together and saying, look, I'm going to back this one person. And we would have to stick with the agenda. And if we promise anything in that meeting, it should be carried out.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. We'll close with Senator Wilkerson, and then we'll close for the evening with our questions.
I have two different schools of thought about your question. Oddly enough, this came up this morning, this very thing. So let me answer it directly. If there was a call to go into a meeting to have a discussion that could end up with a clearer path to September 6th, I'm gonna be there. But here's the other thinking, which makes this different. This is not a Charlotte Ritchie. You know, in the South, which is where I'm from, Black folks go into the booth and pick among Black folks all the time. They are forced to do their homework. They are forced to figure out the positions of the candidates and ask the tough questions, even more than you get at these kinds of forums. You gotta go do research and you pick the person you think best responds to the issues that you have. What I find is oftentimes voters are asking the candidates to make it easy for me. Can you all get out so I only have to pick one? The reality is you need to do the tough questions and they do it all the time. This is really a Northeast issue, right? It really is. We do that we only have that conversation up here. Because the rest of the country, in the South, every day, Black folks go to the polls and vote between one of the 6, 5, 4, 3, Black people on the ballot. So that's my second part of it. But I hope you heard my first. I absolutely believe it. I came in late because I did not think that there was a candidate experienced and knowledgeable enough to go into that belly of the Senate and do what I know has to be done, because we did it and did it with some success. And the time now is just an incredible one for us, and that we talk about gentrification, if we don't want to get stopped, and I don't know, Roxbury is shrinking. We're only 59% black. 15 years ago, it was 77, Senator. So it's real. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. All right.
Remember, our candidates once again. On behalf of the Boston Black Hospitality Coalition, local media, as well as the NAACP, thank you for joining us at Franklin Park this evening. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you being committed to making sure that Boston and Massachusetts is a better place for Black and brown folks. And once again, as we close out our live broadcast tonight and our conversation, we will hand it out here for some closing words. We did not get the opportunity to reach for everybody, but we did extend. We did get to extend our time, so thank you to our candidates for this evening for staying a little bit longer than what we had to on our topic for today. So once again, my name is Courtney Boston. We're handing it to Luther to close us out once again.
We have a few more moments, and I believe some of the candidates will stick around. We have to be respectful of the space and the business that's running here, but please, we encourage your candidates. This was an event that we put on, we knew the importance of it, and we thank you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
We know we have a lot of work to do, but that last question was the question of collaboration. And that's what we need to do. So thank you for your collaboration tonight and continue.